Seeds of connection. Emory Rhodes stared at the contract on his mahogany desk, the lawyers' voices fading into background noise. At 42, he'd built Horizon Technologies into a billion-dollar empire, but the emptiness in his modern glass mansion remained his only constant companion since Nadia's death. "Mr. Rhodes, are you comfortable proceeding?" asked Ms. Bennett, the surrogacy agency director. Emory nodded, his gaze drifting to the framed photo beside his laptop. Nadia's smile, frozen in time from their last vacation in New Zealand before the climbing accident that took her 2 years ago. "The embryos were Nadia's idea," he said quietly. "We were planning to start our family when she—" His voice trailed off. "I'm simply fulfilling what we started. Of course, we've found an excellent candidate. She meets all your requirements, healthy, intelligent, and discreet." When Willow Thorne entered the room minutes later, Emory was struck by how little she resembled the clinical profile he'd reviewed. Her chestnut hair fell in loose waves around a heart-shaped face, and her green eyes held a quiet intensity that caught him off guard. "Mr. Rhodes," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Willow." Her handshake was firm, direct, not what he expected. "Please call me Emory," he replied automatically, then wondered why he'd offered that familiarity. The meeting proceeded efficiently. Willow answered questions about her health history and lifestyle with straightforward honesty. No alcohol, no drugs, regular yoga, occasional painting retreats. "You're an artist?" Emory found himself asking, deviating from the prepared questions. "Art therapist," she corrected with a smile. "I work with children who've experienced trauma. I'm saving to open my own community center." "Hence the surrogacy fee," Ms. Bennett interjected, clearly trying to move things along. "Yes," Willow admitted without embarrassment. "But I also believe in helping create families. My foster parents changed my life by choosing me. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from unexpected arrangements." Something in her words resonated within Emory's carefully compartmentalized heart. 3 weeks later, after the successful embryo transfer, they met at Dr. Patel's office for the first confirmation appointment. Emory arrived early, reviewing emails on his phone when Willow entered the waiting room. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a worn leather messenger bag covered in colorful paint splatters. "Congratulations," Dr. Patel announced after the examination. "The embryo has implanted successfully. You're officially pregnant." Willow's eyes glistened as she looked at the ultrasound screen showing the tiniest flicker of life. Emory felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. "Thank you," he said, the words inadequate for the moment. Walking to the parking lot afterward, an awkward silence hung between them until Willow spoke. "I know this is a business arrangement," she said carefully, "but I'd like to send you updates between appointments." "Nothing intrusive, just how things are progressing." She hesitated. "This is your baby's journey too." Emory had planned for minimal contact, clean, uncomplicated. Yet he found himself saying, "I'd appreciate that." As he watched her drive away in her modest hatchback, Emory realized he'd been holding his breath. This was the first step toward parenthood, a path he'd almost abandoned when he lost Nadia. Now a stranger carried their dream, a woman whose smile had briefly illuminated something long dormant within him. That night, Emory added a new folder to his phone. Baby. The clinical term surrogate suddenly felt insufficient for the woman breathing life into his and Nadia's final hope. Unexpected rhythms. The second trimester brought changes neither Emory nor Willow had anticipated. What began as brief, polite text updates evolved into something more meaningful when Willow sent him a recording of the baby's heartbeat after her 16-week appointment. Emory played it while working late in his office, the steady rhythm pulling him away from acquisition projections and investor meetings. Without thinking, he called her. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said when she answered. "Not at all. I'm just finishing up an art therapy session at Lakeside Children's Hospital." Curiosity prompted his next question. "What kind of art are you working on?" "A mural for the oncology floor. The kids are helping design it. A forest where all the animals are superheroes." She laughed softly. "Their imaginations are incredible. Could I see it sometime?" The question surprised them both. 2 days later, Emery found himself in a hospital corridor watching Willow guide a young boy's hand as they painted a squirrel wearing a cape. She wore overalls splattered with rainbow colors, her growing bump visible beneath the fabric. "This is Emery," she introduced him to the children. "He's the dad of the baby I'm carrying." The simple honesty of her words struck him. He wasn't just a client or donor, he was this child's father. A small girl with a headscarf tugged his sleeve. "Want to help paint the owl? He's the wisest superhero." By afternoon's end, Emery's expensive shirt was stained with blue and purple paint, but he felt lighter than he had in years. Their routine shifted naturally after that. Weekly check-ins became coffee meetings. Coffee evolved into occasional dinners where they discussed the baby's development and gradually their own lives. During the 20-week ultrasound, when Dr. Patel asked if they wanted to know the gender, they exchanged a glance and said yes in unison. "Congratulations, you're having a girl," Dr. Patel announced. The technician captured the image, perfect tiny fingers, the curve of her nose. Emery stared, transfixed. "She has Nadia's profile," he whispered, emotion cracking through his composure. Willow reached for his hand instinctively. He didn't pull away. 3 days later, Willow collapsed at her apartment. Her neighbor called the emergency contact on her phone, Emery. He abandoned a board meeting mid-sentence when the call came. The 30-minute drive to the hospital took him 18 minutes. He found her in the emergency room, pale but conscious, an IV in her arm. "Dehydration and low blood pressure," the doctor explained. "Nothing serious, but we're monitoring her and the baby overnight." Relief washed over him so powerfully his knees nearly buckled. "You didn't have to come," Willow said when they were alone. "Yes, I did." The intensity of his response revealed something neither had acknowledged. He stayed all night in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed, answering emails on his laptop while she slept. When she woke at dawn, she found him still there, his usually impeccable appearance rumpled, dark stubble shadowing his jaw. "You should go home," she murmured. Instead, he asked, "What do you need from your apartment? I'll have someone bring it." That evening, against doctor's advice, Willow insisted on returning home. Emery arranged for a nurse, but Willow refused. "I'm fine, truly. This happens in pregnancy sometimes." "Then I'll stay," he said, the decision already made. He slept on her couch, surrounded by half-finished canvases and books on child psychology. In the morning, he made her breakfast, the only dish he knew how to cook properly, scrambled eggs with herbs. As they ate in comfortable silence, the baby kicked visibly against Willow's abdomen. Without thinking, she took his hand and placed it against the movement. Under his palm, his daughter turned and stretched. Something fundamental shifted in Emery's carefully ordered world. "Thank you," he said, the words encompassing much more than the moment. Willow's eyes met his. "For what? For carrying more than just my child? I think you're carrying parts of me back to life, too." Whispers of Tomorrow. The summer heat blanketed the city as Willow entered her 3rd trimester. Emery insisted she move into the guest house on his estate, for safety, he claimed, though they both recognized the excuse for what it was. The garden between their dwellings became their evening sanctuary. Willow would sketch, while Emery read aloud from pregnancy books and childhood development research he'd been consuming with characteristic thoroughness. "Did you know babies can recognize voices they heard in the womb?" he asked one evening, looking up from his tablet. Willow smiled. "Then you should talk to her more. She should know her father's voice." That night, as fireflies blinked in the gathering darkness, Emery spoke directly to his daughter for the first time. Willow closed her eyes, giving him privacy, while remaining physically present as he introduced himself to the child they shared. "Hello, little one. I'm your father," he began tentatively. "Your mother, your biological mother, was extraordinary. Her name was Nadia, and she would have loved you immensely." Willow felt the baby respond with fluttering movements as Emery continued, his voice growing more confident as he shared stories of Nadia's adventurous spirit and brilliant mind. When he finished, silence stretched between them until Willow opened her eyes to find him watching her with an unreadable expression. "Would you tell me more about her?" she asked softly. About Nadia? They talked until midnight. Emery revealed how they'd met at a technology conference where Nadia had challenged his presentation data, how they'd married after just 6 months, the fertility struggles that led them to create embryos, the climbing expedition in the Cascades where equipment failed and he lost her forever. I wasn't with her, he confessed, pain etching his features. I stayed behind for a merger meeting. She went without me. Willow reached across the space between them. You couldn't have known. The guilt nearly destroyed me. That's why this baby means everything. She's the future Nadia and I planned together. And what about your future? Willow asked carefully. The question hung in the air unanswered. The following week, Willow reciprocated by sharing her own history, growing up in 7 different foster homes, finding stability only at 16 when the Thorns adopted her, discovering art as therapy for her fragmented childhood. That's why your community center matters so much, Emery realized. Every child deserves a safe space to express what they can't say in words. 3 days later, Willow received a call from her real estate agent. The building she'd been trying to lease for her center had been purchased by an anonymous buyer who was offering it to her nonprofit at a nominal rate. She confronted Emery immediately. Did you buy the Madison Street building? Would it upset you if I did? He countered. I don't need your charity. It's not charity, Willow. It's belief in your vision. His expression softened. Consider it my investment in healing, something you've taught me about. She wanted to argue but recognized the gesture for what it was. His way of processing emotions he struggled to express directly. That night, unable to sleep, Willow wandered through the main house and found Emery in his home office, designing a nursery on his computer. What do you think? He asked, showing her the 3D rendering. The room was beautiful. Soft colors, natural light, walls designed to be painted with murals. It's perfect, she said. She'll love growing up there. Will you paint the walls? The question contained another, unspoken one. Emery, she began carefully, we should talk about what happens after she's born, about my role or absence in her life. He stared at the screen, his profile illuminated by the blue light. I've been thinking about that. The baby kicked sharply, making Willow gasp. Emery was beside her instantly, his hand joining hers against the movement. She always responds to your voice, Willow whispered. In that moment, with his daughter moving beneath their joined hands, Emery finally articulated what had been building for months. I don't want you to disappear from her life, from our lives. What are you saying? I'm saying I need more time to understand what I'm feeling. But I know it would feel wrong if you weren't part of her future, part of mine. Part 4. Hearts Unveiled. The call came at 3:17 a.m., 2 weeks before Willow's due date. Emery was already awake, reviewing contracts when his phone lit up with her name. It's time, she said, her voice tight with pain. He found her in the guest house, leaning against the wall during a contraction. The overnight bag they'd prepared was by the door. He grabbed it with one hand while supporting her with the other. I've got you, he said, guiding her to the car. The drive to the hospital was a blur of tension and anticipation. Emery called Dr. Patel while Willow focused on her breathing techniques. Remember, she said between contractions, stay with her if there are complications. The baby comes first. Nothing's going to happen to either of you, he replied firmly. But complications did arise. After 6 hours of labor, the baby's heart rate began to fluctuate. Dr. Patel recommended an emergency C-section. I'll be right outside, Emery promised as they wheeled Willow toward the operating room. No, she gripped his hand. Stay with me, please. He donned surgical scrubs and held her hand throughout the procedure, his eyes never leaving hers, even as the doctors worked on the other side of the surgical drape. When his daughter's first cry filled the room, something broke open inside him, grief and joy colliding in an overwhelming wave. She's perfect, Dr. Patel announced, placing the swaddled infant in Emery's arms. He brought the baby to Willow's side, where she could see the tiny face. "Hello, beautiful," Willow whispered. "Your daddy and I have been waiting for you." The simple truth of her words brought tears to Emery's eyes. "What will you name her?" Willow asked. "Aria," he said. "Aria Nadia Rhodes." The first days of Aria's life passed in a sleep-deprived haze. Willow remained in the hospital an extra day due to the C-section. Emery divided his time between them and the nursery, learning to change diapers and swaddle with determined precision. When it was time to go home, he surprised Willow by appearing with discharge papers and a wheelchair. "The guest house is ready for both of you," he said, "unless you'd prefer to recover at your apartment." "The guest house is perfect for now," she replied, noting his careful phrasing, "for now." They settled into an unplanned routine. Emery worked from home, appearing whenever Aria cried. Willow focused on healing while teaching him how to read the baby's cues. Late one night, Emery found Willow in the nursery, singing softly to Aria. He stood in the doorway, watching them. This woman who had given his daughter life, who had somehow breathed life back into him as well. "You should rest," he said, entering the room. "I can take her." As they carefully transferred the sleeping infant, their faces came close, breath mingling in the dim light. For a moment, neither moved away. "Emery," Willow whispered, "we need to talk about what happens next. The surrogacy contract ends soon." "I know," he said, "but nothing about this feels like a contract anymore." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "I never expected to feel anything again after Nadia," he confessed. "I thought this arrangement would be simple. You would give me my child, and we would go our separate ways. And now? Now I can't imagine Aria's life without you in it. Or mine." His voice dropped lower. "I'm falling in love with you, Willow. And it terrifies me." She placed her hand over his. "Why?" "Because loving someone means risking loss again." "Yes," she agreed. "That's exactly what it means." In the quiet nursery, with their daughter sleeping peacefully between them, Emery leaned forward and kissed Willow for the first time, tentatively, a question more than a declaration. Her response answered everything he'd been afraid to ask. A family chosen. 6 months later, Willow stood in the center of her completed art therapy space, surrounded by children excitedly exploring the colorful rooms. The Madison Street Center had officially opened, with programming already booked through the next year. "Ms. Willow, look what I made!" A young boy held up a clay sculpture. "It's wonderful, Tyler," she smiled, kneeling to examine his work, despite the elegant dress she wore for the opening reception. From across the room, Emery watched her, Aria securely strapped to his chest in a baby carrier. The 6-month-old was alert, her curious eyes, so like her father's, taking in the vibrant surroundings. The journey to this moment had been filled with adjustments and revelations. Willow had moved into the main house 3 months ago. After they'd finally acknowledged what had been building between them deserved a chance to grow. "You've created something extraordinary here," said Joanna Thorne, Willow's adoptive mother, joining Emery by the refreshment table. "Willow created it," Emery corrected. "I just helped with the logistics." Joanna smiled knowingly. "I meant you've created a family, something neither of you thought you'd have." Across the room, Willow caught his eye and smiled, that same smile that had first begun to thaw his frozen heart nearly a year ago. Later that evening, after the guests had departed and they'd put Aria to bed in the nursery Willow had painted with magical forests and gentle creatures, Emery led Willow to the garden where they'd spent so many evenings during her pregnancy. Lanterns illuminated the path and the air was fragrant with jasmine. Beneath the old oak tree, a small table was set with champagne and Willow's favorite dessert. "What's all this?" she asked, delighted. "A celebration," he said, pouring 2 glasses. "Of beginnings." They toasted quietly, comfortable in the knowledge that Aria slept peacefully inside. "The baby monitor nearby?" I've been thinking, Emery said after a moment, about the extraordinary circumstances that brought us together. A rather unconventional love story, Willow agreed. You carried my heart long before I recognized it, he continued, taking her hand. You taught me that family isn't just what we're born into or what we plan, it's what we choose, day after day. From his pocket, he withdrew a small box. Inside lay a ring with a solitary diamond, surrounded by tiny emeralds that matched Willow's eyes. This isn't in our contract, he said with the hint of a smile. I think we've moved well beyond contractual obligations, she replied, her voice unsteady. Emery knelt before her. Willow Thorne, you came into my life as a surrogate, became my co-parent, and somehow along the way, became the love I never expected to find again. Will you marry me? Will you help me raise our daughter and perhaps someday give her siblings? Tears spilled down Willow's cheeks as she nodded. Yes, she whispered. To all of it. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the baby monitor came to life with Arya's soft cries. They looked at each other and laughed. Perfect timing, Willow said, hand in hand. They walked back to the house, to their daughter, to the family they had found in each other's hearts. In the nursery, they stood together over Arya's crib. The baby settled immediately at the sight of both her parents, her tiny fingers reaching up toward them. Hello, little love, Willow whispered. We're here, Emery added, all of us, together. In that moment, surrounded by the soft glow of the nightlight, they were complete, a family born not from tradition or expectation, but from courage, chance, and the willingness to let love rewrite their stories.